92.7 WMAY, Springfield's news and talk.
What are the top stories of 2022? Dig deep. It's been an interesting 12 months. And I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Live and local, taking your phone calls. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and you can message that way. But the best way to do it, call in 217-629-7970. What are the top stories from 2022? Before we get started, though, on Twitter, I follow this page, whalechart.org. It's a cryptocurrency tracker, and it updates, followers on which huge crypto wallets are transferring money, and the latest about the FTX saga and a whole host of other troubled cryptocurrency exchanges. But anyways, the Twitter account did just post this pretty incredible optical illusion, which if you follow on YouTube Live or Facebook or even Twitter Live, you'll see here, he says, I don't know if it's a he or she, but the cubes aren't moving at all. The motion is all in your head. This is crazy. And what it is it's two cubes that are flashing black and white, and then inside the cube, a 3D drawing of a cube. It's got arrows pointing one way or the other, and based on the suggestion of the arrows pointing, it makes it look like it's doing what the arrows are doing. It's pretty remarkable. Anyways, just wanted to get that out. Kind of fascinating to see that. But anyways, all right, so what are the top stories of 2022? I'm thinking, of course, here locally, you've had what's considered the largest fire since the 1970s, happening on Christmas Eve. And that was something that we saw happen just a few days ago. Surely that's going to be a huge story for 2022, but that's here at the tail end. We all know that. But what are some of the other ones? Good morning. You're on WMAY. Your thoughts on the top stories from 2022. What's up?
Good morning, Greg. I'd have to say, Elon Musk buying Twitter and the Twitter files, and and also the DOJ being weaponized, the FBI being weaponized for political use. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on in the world today.
That's a pretty significant story because, typically when we think about stories of the year, top stories, they're stories that are going to reverberate for quite some time. And this story is not going to go anywhere. You had the beginning of it with Twitter, being taken over by Musk, and not just the eventual takeover that happened like in October or something, but the lead up to it. Earlier this year, Musk saying, I might just buy Twitter. And then, the back and forth of him saying, no, I don't want to buy it anymore. And then the questions about how many bots there were, and was Twitter fudging those numbers before Musk took it over. But then ultimately a court was set to say, Musk, you have to take this over. So he took it over. And then he started trickling out all of these Twitter files, which we're not going to hear the last of for quite some time, especially with the Republican-controlled U.S. House. And what's fascinating about this is sometimes a top story might not get the coverage it deserves from the corporate media. And that's very much the case when it comes to the Twitter files, showing that, the decisions made behind closed doors, dealing with who can speak freely on Twitter and who can't, and the pressure from the federal agencies, including the FBI, the CIA, the Department of National Intelligence, not just in this country, but around the globe. So rather incredible, and I think that absolutely that is a top story from 2022. But I want to hear from more of you, 217-629-7970, your thoughts on what the top stories of the year are. I'm just going to say, I think some of the top stories from 2022 for the state of Illinois, the SAFE-T Act, and all of the debate that's been had about this, and in particular, the end of cash bail that starts January 1st. This was very much part of the political conversation in the November election leading up to it, and you had concerns that people are going to be able to leave police custody even after being charged with significant crimes. and people being called fearmongers for ultimately laying that out and their concerns, and the lawsuit that was filed. But then lawmakers had to come back with a 300-page bill to clean it up, signifying that there were some substantial holes in the Safety Act, Pretrial Fairness Act. But then again, it's stuck in court right now. We could find out the ultimate outcome today or tomorrow as to what the judge in Kankakee County is going to say. And that's going to go all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court, regardless of what the outcome is in the circuit court, and then the reverberations of the Safety Act and no cash bail. That's gonna last well into 2023. So I think the Safety Act definitely is one of those top stories for Illinois. But also another top story for Illinois is former House Speaker Michael Madigan being charged not with one, but 23 different counts of corruption by federal prosecutors. That as well is a top story for the state, no question about it. But what about other top stories? What do you think? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number again, 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can comment on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Just search it out, Bishop on Air, and we can connect that way. But the best way to get your voice heard on the top story of 2022 is 217-629-7970. All right, we'll get some more coming up, including some local stories that at least I think were some of those top stories of 2022. But let's hear what you have to add. All right, coming up here with Springfield's Morning News, I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News.
On Facebook and YouTube, like and subscribe now. Springfield's Morning News with Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY.
We've been talking about the top stories of 2022 and definitely want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. What are those top stories of the year? As we approach the end of the month and the start of a new year, some of the top stories, of course, you got to highlight the elections that happened this year in November with, of course, the outcome in Illinois being the outcome of the Amendment 1 proposal that restricts state or local restrictions on what can be collectively bargained. That passed, but also Democrats sweeping all statewide offices in Illinois. But I think another major story from the election is the national outcome of Republicans getting control of the U.S. House. So that's another pretty big story for 2022. But we also have a bunch of local stories that we got to highlight from the past year. One of them that was controversial that still sticks in my head because of the 911 call that we got and the body cam footage that we got. And that was the incident outside of Staub Funeral Home several months ago where there was a job action. Some union members getting an inflatable rat and putting it outside of the funeral home, protesting Staub using non-labor unions to fix a roof. And somebody was upset, came out, stabbed the rats, and you had that pretty priceless audio of the 911 call of the dispatcher confused whenever they were told by the callers that somebody had stabbed the rat. And they just didn't really understand what was going on there. So that was, kind of an interesting story, maybe a story of the year. But I think another major story of the year has been what's going on with the Wyndham City Center and the uncertainty around that. And are we going to see that be more apartments and the prospect of it turning into subsidized apartments instead of being hotel space, which a lot of city aldermen saying that we need to have those hotel spaces in order to best manage future conventions. So that's still very much an unresolved story, and it was a pretty big story locally here in Springfield as we look at the need for more convention activities, more tourism, but do we have enough hotel space? So that very much is another major story of the year in this past 12 months. But what about your thoughts? 217-629-7970. What are some of the top stories of the past 12 months, either locally for the state of Illinois or for the national stories? I think another big major national story that we have to talk about that impacts Illinois as well, and that's immigration. people coming across the border seeking asylum or coming across the border illegally. We've had just a record number of people who've come across the border in a not legal fashion, either illegally or trying to seek asylum. But the numbers are staggering. You're talking millions upon millions upon millions more than there were last year and the year before that. But it's not just coming across the border. It's what some of these border communities have been doing with these migrants and putting them on buses and sending them to sanctuary cities. And the sanctuary cities include Chicago. Chicago's gotten thousands of migrants bused from some of these border communities. You also had the Martha's Vineyard incidents where the border states sent migrants to Martha's Vineyard. You recall that. But even on Christmas Day, you had migrants being shipped via bus just outside of Vice President Kamala Harris's house. So that made some news as well. Definitely migration and the incredible flow of questions of human trafficking and drug trafficking. That is also a major story from the past 12 months. Other major stories that impact the state of Illinois, you had the July 4th mass shooting, the Independence Day mass shooting that happened in Highland Park, obviously is a huge story, but that also can't overshadow the regular violence that takes place in Chicago. And it's not just in Chicago where you've got gun violence happening. We've even had gun violence here in Springfield, in Decatur, in Peoria, in Rockford. So violence and crime, another one of those top stories of the past 12 months. And all of this, of course, coming to a head here at the end of the year. What are some of the top stories in your thoughts? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Follow me there, and we can connect and exchange thoughts and ideas. And anytime you have a story tip you want to share, you can do that. Just email me. I offer complete anonymity, and I always go out and verify things before I actually go out and report them. So if you've got a story tip or a suggestion, you can always email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. All right, stories of the year. That's just a small smattering of some of the major stories from the past 12 months. You've also got inflation that was just huge, with record inflation impacting everything from the cost of eggs to the cost of gas to heating your home, and energy crunches. So inflation's another major story, how it's been 40-year highs. And that's impacting people all across the country. You've got the war in Ukraine. That's a major story with Russia invading Ukraine and the U.S. giving $100 billion to Ukraine. So that's a major story. You've got significant weather events that have happened all across the country, from hurricanes and even an earthquake over in California. Mother Nature definitely taking its toll over there. But a whole host of other things that we just don't have time to tackle from the past 12 months. So if you want to share what you think are some of the top stories, you can do so. Call in live, 217-629-7970, or email me, bishoponair@gmail.com.